When you have your girls, you're never alone. You get together for coffee, maybe to work out, or just to laugh. We created Hey Girl just for you. Can't wait for you to join us.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Hey Girl. I'm your girl, Kim with an E, and this is episode 83. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, I want to let you know that Hey Girl is a safe space where you can share your experiences and be affirmed. Let's face it, life can be complex and sometimes overwhelming. That's why we believe in the power of conversation, because knowing you're not alone is what helps you get through. And I'm so glad you're here with me today. Come on in, say hello, tell me that you're here, and go ahead and like this page and share this live. Follow Hey Girl if you're not already. Be sure to tell all your friends that this is the place to be every Saturday at 5. Welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. So this has been a very interesting month. As you know, we've been talking about failure, and we've had some great conversations. And I know it's not something that we typically focus on, but I think that what we've learned this month is how important it is to not run away from failure, but maybe we should even be running to failure. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. I want to remind you, if you didn't see the earlier episodes, do go back to the Facebook page. Our playlist is there, and all of the past episodes, you can find them. The first week of this month, we kicked off this theme of failure with my friend Carlisha Swan. Now, she's had a lot of successes in her life, but she's also struggled to, in particular, pass a certifying exam for her field. And although she's had many other successes, that's one thing that she has not yet been able to conquer. And she's had other failures as well. Everything hasn't gone exactly as she had planned. And she's working through how to not allow that failure to defeat her. And then last week, we talked to my friend Amanda, of course, who has had a journey of ups and downs and a life full of twists and turns. And through it all, she has figured out how to recalibrate and adjust. And in spite of what sometimes seemed like failure, keep pushing through. And so we certainly can identify, I'm sure, with both of these ladies and the challenges that they've had and the failures that they've experienced, right? Let me know in the comments if that sounds familiar to you. If you, in one way or another, have experienced similar failures, things have gone left, have not always gone according to plan. Of course, there's so much that we can't even control, can't always control. And so tell me in the comments what some of the lessons are that you have learned from the failures that you've experienced, because that's really what it's about, right? We all experience failure in one way or another. Things don't go perfectly for us all the time, but rather than dwell on the failures as such, maybe it's something that we're supposed to take from those experiences that will help us conquer the next challenge, right? So share with me in the comments what lessons you have learned from failures, and let's learn from one another. Let's share our experiences. That's what we're here for, and see how we can rely on or lean on one another to get through. So we're going to continue this conversation today, and it's just Kim today. I'm by myself. I don't have a guest, but I thought, well, I can't have everyone else sharing their failures and their experiences with failure and not do my share. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. I will share with you some of the lessons that I've learned from failure and some lessons that we maybe all can learn as we think about this particular topic this month. But before we do, as I said before, be sure to share your lessons learned in the comments. I hope I'm not here all by myself today. Hope that you are joining me. And as I said before, please be sure to share this live and continue liking and following Hey Girl, because we're here for you, and I'm hoping that you all are here for me as well. So before I get into the conversation for today, have a few announcements. I am so excited to share with you some brand new products in the Hey Girl store. I have a beautiful young lady whom I love. I call her my niece. We're not related by blood, but our hearts are connected. And her name is Dane Ford. And she is a talented young lady. She and my daughter have grown up together their whole lives. And she just called me out of the blue one day and said, "Hey, Auntie, I have some artwork that I think you could use for some of your products in your Hey Girl store." And she sent them to me, and of course I love them, and I wanted to make some products that you all might enjoy as well and appreciate the talent of this young lady. So check them out. It's a beautiful pillow. There's a glass with her artwork on it as well, and a travel mug that I think you will find to be really cute. We're coming up on the holiday season. We're probably thinking about gifts for our loved ones, and I think the Hey Girl store may have a couple of items that you will really enjoy, especially with the addition of my good friend, my sweet niece, Dane Ford's artwork displayed on some of those items. So be sure and check them out. You can actually go right here on this Facebook page to the store, and you'll be able to click through and purchase those items. And be sure and let me know what you think of them. If you're looking at them right now, tell me in the comments how cute you think they are. I actually showed them to my daughters, and they both really loved them. And I think that it's just a fresh new look for our products, and there's going to be more to come. Dane, I think, is going to share some more of her artwork, and I have some other ideas for some things. So keep an eye out for those new products that will be coming out very, very soon. Just in the next few weeks, as a matter of fact, because we're coming up on the holidays. Got to make sure we have some cute things for you to take a look at and be sure to share with those you love. And of course, I want to remind you, as always, to sign up for the Just Kim newsletter. Each week, I just send you a little message of encouragement, always a free downloadable or something interesting for you to enjoy, and hopefully that will motivate you in a positive way. And it's very simple. The link is there on our page. Just click through and sign up. And as I said, I don't spam you. You don't get a bunch of stuff, because believe me, I have thousands of emails also, and I do not want to overwhelm the inbox. Now, I shared last week my favorite Spotify list, which I've actually curated really with you all in mind and this show in mind. Let me take that back. I started curating the playlist because it was encouraging to me. And then I thought about you all, and I thought, this is good stuff. These songs are just really feeding my soul. And I believe that they would do the same for you. So there's the link there in the chat to the You Are Not Alone Spotify playlist. And I had the link in this week's newsletter. Those of you who received it may have had trouble clicking that link. I know when I tested it, it didn't work, and I'm not sure why, but I'm going to fix it this week and make sure that that link will be available this coming week in the newsletter, so that you can access it. But I think you'll really enjoy the songs on there. The words to all the songs are just so powerful and so healing, particularly when you're going through something and just need to be reminded that you're not alone. And that's really, as you know, what Hey Girl is all about. That's why we're here. That's why I started this show, because I have had the blessing of a sister circle and sister friends who have lifted me up when I was going through tough times. And we've had such healing conversations and sharing, times of sharing that really were so meaningful that I don't know what I would have done without them. And I thought, if we could in some way or another replicate that and share it with the world, perhaps you all can benefit as well. And maybe even it will spark and motivate you to establish some of those friendships in your own community with one or two other like-minded women who are moving in the same direction that you are. Because I think that when we have those types of people in our lives that surround us, then they hold us accountable, and we can kind of motivate one another to move forward and do well and not give up and not be discouraged. And so today I'm sharing a little bit of my heart, I guess you could say, as we round out this conversation about failure. And if you haven't already, be sure to share this live. And maybe there's someone that you know who needs to hear that they're not alone, that you're not the only one who has gone through tough times, who has experienced failures and defeat and maybe battled with doubt and uncertainty. That's certainly my story. And as I said before, it's because of great friends sister friends that I have not been defeated by those failures. So when we talk about failure, I think that we can all identify with the day-to-day stuff that just goes left, right? Like even just today, getting this show together, it just seems like there were so many things that were sort of monkey wrenches thrown into the plan that just was not allowing this to come together. And I said, there must be some reason that these challenges are coming up, and I need to just, rather than be frustrated by them, think about what it is that I'm supposed to learn in this moment. And I've only learned how to respond that way because of the many, many times in the past when that kind of frustration has occurred. And the challenge that I've had is in not being defeated by the things that don't go right, to not internalize the things that I didn't do right and say, oh, that's just who I am, right? And so as I think about some of the lessons that I've learned, I can really go back, and I often go back to a particular time in my life when I was just a freshman in high school. And I have always been a studious person, A student, always try to do well. And I found myself challenged by an algebra class. I could not for the life of me understand what the words were that was coming out of the teacher's mouth. He might as well have been speaking a different language. And for the first time, maybe, or the first time that I can remember, I really began to see myself as a failure. In spite of the fact that I was making good grades in all my other classes, I just could not do well in this particular class. And unfortunately, the teacher that I had at that time let me know that just some people just aren't good at math. And so it just confirmed for me that this was just something that I had as a deficit. And it was a failure in me to not be able to do well in this class. And from my freshman year until my senior year, I accepted that identity as part of my identity. I am not able to do well in this area. And I think that's the case for many of us, right? There are certain areas that we excel in and others that we struggle in. But I think the failure that I had was in accepting that as just absolute truth. And even to this day, I struggle. I don't have to deal with math too often, and so that's probably why. But I really kind of have to battle with this mindset that it's not something I'm able to do. Fast forward to my senior year, and I had a different teacher, and she was teaching me Algebra 2. And I went into her class thinking, I'm not able to do well in this. And by God's grace and mercy, she was a different kind of teacher, and she was not accepting that as my identity as the other teacher had. And she taught the lesson in a different way, such that I not only understood it, but I excelled in it. And I shocked myself, because I actually left that class with an A. And she didn't dumb the material down. She didn't not teach all the parts, but she just believed in us enough and believed in her skills as a teacher enough to know that we were capable of doing more than we realized. Because I think others in my class may have struggled a bit too prior to that. But I know I was indeed able to succeed, and it helped me to see myself in a different way in terms of my abilities and capabilities. And it taught me the lesson of not accepting as part of my identity this failure, even if I failed in the past, to do well in that area, right? So that's the message. Even if you fail at something, don't accept that failure as your identity. It's just something that you failed at, which means you'll need to try again or work harder at the next time. Another experience that I had of failure was when I was applying to grad school for the first time. Again, I was a student, did well, graduated top of my class. I thought, I'll apply to grad school and they'll all want me. One of you who've ever applied to grad school knows, which I didn't at the time, that it's very competitive. And there's very few slots for lots of applicants. And so when the letters begin to come in saying you were not accepted into this program, I again accepted that rejection as failure and as in some way or another reflective of me. I took it on as my identity. But I later had to learn that it wasn't about me, that it wasn't about my own failures. It was about the limited space, and that there were just simply not going to be winners. Everyone wasn't going to be able to be accepted, even those that were qualified. And so it had less to do with me than with that situation. Another moment when I learned something about failure. And it also taught me to not be too cocky or too prideful about the opportunities that are out there as though they are owed to me, right? There still has to be effort. There still has to be work. And you're not always going to win, period. And so then there was, after I finally did acquire the master's degree in English, I had an opportunity to teach a freshman comp class, many freshman comp classes. In fact, I began at the lowest on the totem pole. So I had lots and lots of freshman comp classes. And I must tell you, there were many days when I felt defeated just because of the overwhelming amount of work. But there was one class in particular. It was a class of about 19 students, and they were all engineering majors. And the reality is that all of them, perhaps because they were engineering majors, had just a very different way of thinking and processing than I have. And we've talked about women in STEM, and there's just some people who excel in a way that I never will. Even if I may not fail at all the math classes or math tasks, I will never be able to think in the way that many people do who go into those fields, right? So I'm using the other side of my brain, whatever that means. And in my effort to make the information accessible and understandable to this class of engineering majors, I used everything that I knew to use to convey that in as clear a way as possible. It was the way I thought and the way I processed it was that way that I presented the information to them. And I failed miserably. That class of 19 quickly dwindled down to, I think, maybe 9. Half of the class, as I said, just dropped. I was not succeeding. They were not understanding me. As far as they were concerned, I was failing. And as far as I was concerned, I was failing. I failed them because I just wasn't able to make the connection for them. Like I said, maybe the way we processed was just too different. But I must tell you that ever since that class, I have thought about that class, and I've thought about what I might have done differently, or maybe what I could have done differently. And I think that I could have actually been successful in that class, but I needed to fail first in order to figure out what might have worked. And since then, I have learned so much about teaching and about working with students of different types and different kinds and those who think in different ways. And it's very hard. It is trial and error. And I don't always do it well or do it right. But I've always thought back on that class where I failed miserably. And I've wished I could have a do-over, because I really feel like if I had that same group now, I would do it a different way. And I think I would have a better outcome. But nonetheless, I'll never have that opportunity. It still is something, it's a failure that I still hold on to and use in different ways, the lessons that I learned in that class. So failure has been something that I experience often. And the examples that I've shared are not the only ones. And for some reason, I guess I have spent a lot of time either in school as a student or in an academic setting, because I've been a teacher. But before I was able to earn the terminal degree, I experienced many, many failures, just little failures in just trying to move towards that goal. But there was one in particular that really nearly took me out. I had come down to the end after pushing through a very difficult program. I was commuting out of town to complete the degree, and I had come down finally to the end and was seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But I think that I was in too big of a hurry and did not prepare adequately for one of the final comprehensive exams, and I failed. I failed that exam. And interestingly enough, it was right before the Thanksgiving break that I got the news that I had failed it. man, can you imagine? I think we had company coming in town the same day or the next day for Thanksgiving. And I just was informed that I had failed one of the comprehensive exams. These are the right down to the end, the most important exams that you take before you write the dissertation. And I was sure that I was done. I was like, okay, that's it for me. I'm never going to complete this degree. I don't have what it takes. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt like I had been run over by a truck, and then I still had to put on the happy face for company. It was a very, very miserable time. But I want to say that I learned from that experience as well. I don't know, in the moment, at the time, I didn't see how I was ever gonna get over that one. I remember sitting in a dark room on the floor in tears, thinking the last 3 years have just been a waste and down the drain. It's all for nothing. And I could not see then any way out. I could not see then that there could possibly be any other outcome other than the failure that I felt in that moment. But somehow I had a companion in my husband. And he was really the only one at that time who I was willing to share that failure with. And he just kept encouraging me that it wasn't over, that this was just a little bump in the road. And he has this amazing ability to just sort of bounce back from failure, which is something I'm still learning to do. But with his help and with some encouragement from my advisors on where I had gone wrong and what I just needed to do differently, I was able to pull myself out of the darkness. And in a couple of months, I spent many, many, many long hours preparing to retake the exam. And I probably over prepared because of that failure, but it wasn't a bad thing. It was because of the failure that I strove even more to succeed. And so I guess that's the lesson from that failure in particular, because it was a particularly painful hit and one that I thought I wouldn't recover from. But the result of it was that I worked that much harder to achieve the goal than I would have otherwise. And so in the end, I learned from it and I benefited from that. And you think, oh, that's the hardest thing you ever endured. It was all smooth sailing after that, right? You achieve this enormous goal. You get to the mountaintop and you get the big deal, you get the big degree, you get the big job or whatever it is, and you think, that's it. I've arrived. I've gone through all the stuff that I'm going to go through, and I've made it. I'm done. No, it's never done. It's never done. There's always another lesson to learn, and often it has to be learned through failure. There were many days, weeks, months, and years that I lost opportunities, that I strived to achieve certain goals and to get certain jobs, and I got really close at times, but it was a while before I got the dream job. And there were many times when I assumed I never would. I assumed that it was something about me that meant it wasn't going to happen. But if there's one thing that I've learned over and over again from all of these experiences, is that I do not need to absorb the failures as my identity. And I do need to look and keep looking for the lessons that I can learn from them. And I need to allow those experiences to drive me harder towards the goal that I'm trying to reach. And that's certainly what the failures that I've experienced have done. And so now it's up to me and up to you to be reminded of those lessons and to be reminded of the way that they are able to motivate us towards our goals and not to allow it to defeat us. Because that's what this month is all about, right? How do you get up when failure knocks you down? You don't let it knock you down. You let it teach you something. You let it drive you to something. You let it be the thing that you can talk about as the step that got you to where you are. I happened upon a devotional from the book Chasing Failure, How Falling Short Sets You Up for Success by Ryan Leake. I hadn't heard of it before, but how ironic that I came across it as I was preparing for today's show. And there are 3 points that Ryan Leake makes in this book that I think are so profound that we each need to hold on to. First of all, he says, what's worse, failing while trying or failing by not trying? So as soon as we stop trying to do something because we're afraid we're going to fail, we fail. So why not go for it, whatever it is, and risk failing instead? Because you don't have anything but gain, right? Because the next point that he makes is that either you're learning along the way or you're eventually going to win. So even if you're failing, you're learning. And so it's still a win, right? He also says that it's all about our mindset, which we know, right? Chasing failure, he says, is dependent not on circumstances. Circumstances come and go. They're up and down. There's twists and turns. But rather on your attitude, character, and mindset when the inevitable pitfalls, obstacles, and losses in life happen. That's it. That is the lesson for us today. This month, we've been talking about failure, and we've been talking to women who have succeeded in spite of their failures. No, perhaps they've succeeded because of their failures. So the question I ask you again is, what lessons have you learned from the failures in your life? You know, there's a scripture that I thought of as I was preparing today's talk, and it's from 1 Samuel 17:48. It's the story of David and Goliath. We all know that story. It's a very common story. But what is the story? That David killed Goliath and he didn't have a chance and he was an unlikely hero? Yeah. But aside from that, more important than that is this one passage, one portion of the passage before the victory happens. And it says that when Goliath started forward, David ran toward him. He ran towards the thing that was most likely going to defeat him. That's the lesson. Rather than be knocked down by failure, perhaps we should be chasing after failure, running straight towards it, straight towards the inevitable thing that is there to defeat us. Because in the running towards it, it's the journey that we learn from, that we grow from, that we gain from. And it doesn't matter what the outcome is, whether we kill the giant or not, we still win because of that journey forward. And so that's what I want to leave us with today. I don't want you to be knocked down by failure. I want you to run towards failure and learn every lesson you can learn along the way, because ultimately you will win. You may not win what you think you were going for, but in one way or another, you will win. You will learn, you will grow, and you will succeed as long as you go towards it in the name of Jesus. And that's what David did, right? He was fighting in the name of the God of Israel, and he had all his confidence in that God. So it's not even us that is winning. It's us relinquishing our power to the one who is all powerful and knowing that one way or another, the battle is not ours, it's his, and the victory is already won. So I hope that speaks to someone out there today. I hope that, like me, you needed to hear this today and be encouraged that you're not alone. even when you are failing. All of us have had and continue to have that experience. So let's hang in there. Let's lean on one another and rely on those who are around us to keep us accountable and keep us moving forward. And let's lift one another up and encourage one another as we strive towards that ultimate goal, which of course is heaven. I'm so glad that you joined me today, and I hope that you have a blessed week. We're going into the Thanksgiving holiday, and I know there are so many things to be thankful for. There's certainly so many challenges that we've had in the past year, maybe in the past weeks or months, but know that God is still in control and He's still working things out in your life for good. And so let's focus on the things that we do have to be thankful for this month. This week in particular, just set all the things aside that have been worrying you or bothering you, and just let's meditate on the blessings. That's what our show will be about next week, giving thanks to God for all that He's done, and surrounding ourselves with the love of family and friends. And I wish that for all of you as you go into the Thanksgiving holiday as well. I'll see you again next week. Well, next week, and then next week is Thanksgiving, and then after that, here we are at the end of the year, already in December, and I'm super excited. I told you a couple of weeks ago that our theme in December is going to be marriage. The marriage edition of Hey Girl is coming back, and we have some couples who will be with us to share how they have managed to keep it together, and we're going to round out the year talking about love and relationships and marriage. And so I hope that you will join us. God bless you all. Have a wonderful week. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you next time.